There is more evidence tonight of just how badly the nation's hospitals have been impacted by that surge in child respiratory illnesses we told you about last night. 3 out of 4 pediatric hospitals are now reported to be full as positive tests for RSV, a virus especially common to young children, have tripled in the last 2 months. Some young patients shuttled to other hospitals to find space. Those symptoms are usually mild. Tonight we hear from distraught parents whose children have faced severe illness. All this coming well before the winter months when respiratory viruses tend to peak and as the flu and COVID enter the picture. The White House COVID response coordinator telling me it is going to be a tough winter. In a few moments, more of my conversation with Dr. Ashish Jha. But first, let's get the latest from Gabe Gutierrez.
Tonight, as hospitals battle the early spike in child respiratory illnesses, nearly 75% of the country's estimated 40,000 pediatric hospital beds are full. A major hospital in Houston has had to fly out several sick patients because they're out of room.
The fact that right now we're having to transport, kids hundreds of miles away, if not outside of the state, is very, very rare.
The CDC out with new numbers today showing flu activity keeps rising in most of the country, especially the southeast and south central U.S. But most concerning to many parents, the relentless spread of RSV, a respiratory illness often with mild cold-like symptoms that can lead to severe infections in very young children or older adults.
It's the most terrifying thing as a parent because you're completely helpless.
In Ohio, Shanisty Ireland and her 2-month-old son Asa just got home from the hospital after a harrowing few days fighting RSV.
I was standing there in trauma talking to doctors and nurses, and I'm just bawling my eyes out, and they were trying to explain to me what was going on.
In Connecticut, Tara Ficaselli's 3-month-old son Tanner is out of the ICU and recovering after spending days on a ventilator.
This has been definitely the hardest 2 weeks of my life.
This video taking just hours before he was rushed to the ER.
Before we called 911 to come in, he was perfectly healthy. A virus this common could make him this sick is just really alarming.
They're expecting a bad influenza season.
Today, we visited the largest pediatric hospital in New York State, Cohen Children's Medical Center, which is already above capacity.
What would you tell parents of very young children who start to see their kids get sick? When should they bring them to the emergency room?
Sure. So if their fevers are high, if they're having what looks like a difficult time breathing, if they're so tired of appearing or they're lethargic and they're not even able to eat or drink, well, they should be seen sooner rather than later.
Gabe, it's all very worrisome. During the height of the COVID pandemic, healthcare workers, as you recall, were under incredible strain. Could we see something similar with this new crush of respiratory illnesses?
Well, Lester, across the country, many other hospitals have been dealing with staff shortages for a while, and that challenge is only expected to get worse as we head into the winter. Lester?
Gabe Gutierrez, thanks. I'm now joined by Dr. Ashish Jha, White House COVID response coordinator. And Dr. Jha, it's not just RSV out there, but we're seeing, as we noted, more flu cases. There are new COVID variants appearing, a triple threat, if you will. What's the winter going to look like?
Yeah, so Lester, thanks for having me back. Every winter we deal with respiratory pathogens. Last couple of years, of course, very different. It's been primarily just COVID. This year we do expect all 3 of them. The good news is we've got vaccines against 2 of them. Both COVID and influenza have vaccines. Vaccinated people just do not end up in the hospital at anywhere near the same rates. So if we